Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down to talk about BioWare. Some very interesting news has broken this last couple of days about what's going on with Dragon Age Dreadwolf, as well as Mass Effect 5. Indeed, a BioWare vet is returning, and I'm curious if this story will be covered as much as BioWare losing another vet as I typically see online. This move has serious ramifications, so we're going to run through what's going on over at BioWare, and I'm going to offer my thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into BioWare news and information, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's begin with the original source, which is GamesBeat, where they write an article titled, "Ex-BioWare executive producer and Mass Effect team rally to finish Dragon Age Dreadwolf."
But first, a word from our sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Brilliant.org. Brilliant.org is the best way to learn math and computer science interactively. Ladies and gentlemen, newsflash, I do not have a math brain at all. I am many things, but mathematician is not one of them. So what did I do over at Brilliant? Well, that's right, I tried out computer science, going completely into a weaker area for me. Fortunately, Brilliant has thousands of lessons, so if that doesn't sound great to you, they have stuff from foundational and advanced math to AI, data science, neural networks, and more, with new lessons added monthly. I think one of the best tests you can give Brilliant, in my opinion, is going into that weaker area and giving it the old college try. Because look, math is not my specialty by any stretch of the imagination, and your boy went in there and was starting to understand things a little bit quicker than usual. This was a really good feeling, but it also spotlights that Brilliant is an excellent learning tool. So to try everything Brilliant has to offer free for a full 30 days, visit brilliant.org/MrMattyPlays or click on the link in the description. The first 200 of you will get 20% off Brilliant's annual premium subscription. So go ahead, check it out. Again, link down below. Former BioWare executive producer Mark Darrah has returned to work on Dragon Age Dreadwolf as a consultant. On top of that, Electronic Arts said that the Mass Effect team will help the production of Dragon Age Dreadwolf as the production and polishing tasks ratchet upward. The Mass Effect team can do that because the next Mass Effect title is still in the pre-production stage with a small core team working on it, GamesBeat has learned. Our studio is focused on creating the best Dragon Age Dreadwolf while the core Mass Effect team continues their pre-production work, said Gary McKay, BioWare general manager, in a statement to GamesBeat. We continue to iterate and polish Dreadwolf, focusing on the things that matter most to our fans. As we further connect this new experience with the series' legacy, Mark Darrah will join the team as a consultant, bringing with him years of experience working on Dragon Age. We're really proud to have this team with strong leadership at the helm working together to realize the vision we have for this game, end quote. EA said that Dragon Age Dreadwolf has been in post-production since September and that the team's been hard at work, spending a lot of time iterating and making it better. Now that the team has the ability to do a complete playthrough, it can iterate and polish on the things that matter most to fans. We'll pause there. Mark Darrah has also spoken out about this information, confirming it himself on Twitter, and then making a video on his personal YouTube channel, one that I recommend y'all should check out, by the way, if you're looking to be educated on game development. He does confirm in that video that he will still be making videos on the channel at least once a week, but that being a consultant over on Dragon Age Dreadwolf will soak up more of his time. Now, this is obviously extremely encouraging because for those who don't know, Mark Darrah was an executive producer on some of the previous Dragon Age games. He led Dragon Age 2, which I personally believe is one of the more misunderstood video games made in the last decade, and he's been a major piece to the puzzle here. Of course, the story with BioWare for years has been, oh my god, another vet is leaving. Casey Hudson, Mac Walters, the list goes on. There's been tons and tons and tons of articles where it's like a form of content for outlets to just highlight when people leave BioWare after 2 decades even, and that people should stay there their whole lives. Now, I'm right there with you all that consecutive exits do spell a bit of concern, and I'm definitely staying reserved for Dragon Age Dreadwolf, but to me, there's a lot of things here that I'm going to explain that are lining up just right, and getting Darrah in the building is extremely encouraging, especially so because I've had the privilege to be able to speak with Mark Darrah in an interview over on Defining Duke Ultimate. We talked a lot about his time at BioWare, his time working with EA, and the ups and downs of that. He's been equally transparent in that interview as he has been on his own YouTube channel, to the point that I'm actually very surprised the man got re-employed at BioWare. Not that he was dragging them through the mud, but I do think of his BioWare rant where he talks about BioWare magic. And he talks a lot about the hockey stick development, something I bring up a lot in our BioWare coverage, where it's a very flat curve that should really be raised higher because progress isn't being made. And then suddenly, after a long stretch of time, a lot of things come together. And he says that's not BioWare magic, that's a bad process. And again, find that all interesting because it blew up, got a lot of coverage, and then he gets hired by them again. So I think kudos to both parties for understanding one another and allowing them to put their differences aside and work for the better of a product many of us are excited about. I'll talk about what this means in a moment for BioWare as a whole, because I think it shows where their mindset is at, given that they're bringing the Mass Effect team over. But let's continue reading, as there is still more here in this article. Darrah was a former developer and executive producer on the Dragon Age titles at BioWare. He left the studio alongside Casey Hudson in December 2020. Recently, he approached BioWare about returning, and the team thought it was an opportunity to bring back a seasoned veteran who was integral to the last 3 Dragon Age games. Darrah's focus will center on ensuring that the team is connecting this new experience with the legacy of the franchise. Respecting the Dragon Age legacy while sustaining the vision for this beloved franchise is a top priority. Corinne Bush, Benoit Hull, John Epler, and Masij Karowski continue to lead the Dragon Age team. That's all there just to pretty much emphasize, and Darrah says it himself in his own video, that he's not coming in and going up to his ears in game development stuff. Like, he's not going to be firing away on all cylinders, probably programming stuff, working on the back end, that type of stuff. No, this to me sounds very much like, as the job title would suggest, giving him the opportunity to provide valuable feedback, which I've personally learned can go a very long way if you're working with someone who knows a lot more than you or has been in the game more than you. And especially, I love the focus here because he returned to them, and it sounds like the focus was narrative. Now, because Darrah approached BioWare, and Darrah, of course, has his own connections at the company, I do wonder what that spells for the game. I don't want to get too speculative about that, but in my head, the skeptical side says, did he hear something was kind of off and went, hey, look, you can't do that, or you might need some guidance. I'm here to help if you want it, to kind of guide it back on the right path. Who knows? Every bit of story trailer that we've seen for this game hasn't left me too concerned. Even the leaks about the story haven't left me super concerned. The only thing that kind of shook me up was when we saw the brief gameplay leak, and that was because I thought, they're changing the gameplay style again. That is the only concern I have, because I want Dragon Age to have a sense of identity, and I don't think outside of its narrative, it's really accomplished that. But keeping the narrative on the straight and narrow is important. So I do wonder why he approached them. He didn't seem to be struggling. He seemed to be enjoying his time away from games. But I feel like the game always calls you back, doesn't it? Meanwhile, the core Mass Effect team led by Mike Gamble will continue with pre-production work on Mass Effect. Dragon Age Dreadwolf doesn't have a launch date yet. Players are anxious to know when that will be. Yes, absolutely. BioWare has a long history of making amazing single-player games with powerful stories that fans can immerse themselves within, said Samantha Ryan, Senior Vice President and Group Manager at EA, in a statement. They've been taking their time on the next Dragon Age, trying new things, bringing in the right people, and making sure they're refining their game. That's normal for a complex game of this genre. This phase of production takes time, and the studio wants to make sure it gets it right for its fans. Ryan is in charge of the BioWare, Full Circle, Maxis, and Motive Studios at Electronic Arts. So I mentioned what this means for BioWare earlier, and I want to get to that now. So the Mass Effect team, small team, but they're mostly, it sounds like, being pulled off to go focus on Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Why is that? I know many of you out there are like me, my Mass Effect brethren and sisters. Y'all are like, we want that as soon as possible. We got to look at the timeline just a little bit here. Number one, last Mass Effect game, the true latest entry, not Legendary Edition, but Andromeda, was a pretty significant miss for a lot of fans there. I think it feels good to play, but narratively, writing-wise, I think it was a far cry away from where it should have been. Now, they're hiring the right talent. They just brought in the Guardians of the Galaxy writer to help make Mass Effect, which I think is a phenomenal step forward. I mean, they did win the Best Narrative Award at the Game Awards, so that is saying at least something, I believe, but I personally think that is a great hire. You need to let the writers cook. The more time they have, the more they can define all of these scenes, all that's going to happen with these characters, have time for multiple editing passes. So the more time Mass Effect has, while it does hurt, is absolutely going to help it. That's a general rule of thumb for game development, but especially so for writing, because it allows them to iterate, think, and adjust before things are really firmly set in stone and it becomes this big scale project. So I like that the writers are going to have plenty of time to cook what's happening here. But also, I do think there's a bit of a reality here, and this may sound grim, but I think there is a bit of a reality there that BioWare is looking at this as bring on what help we can get, whether it be someone who pretty openly spoke about our process and how it was bad, but has a lot of value to our company, or even the Mass Effect team, and take them off of that. It will definitely slow things down, because without a successful Dragon Age Dreadwolf, who knows if we can get to that Mass Effect. And I like the small business mindset almost here, which is one game at a time. Of course, pre-production is beginning on a separate one, but truly one video game at a time, please. And I like this approach because I think before we start configuring what the next Mass Effect is, you gotta make sure Dreadwolf is a slam dunk. Typically, companies aren't in this type of position, but we already know the history of BioWare, as of recently, speaks for itself, with their best game being in the last number of years, a remaster collection. Outside of that, I think it's been a hot minute since we've had a truly jaw-dropping, industry-stopping type of video game from BioWare, and they recognize that. And of course, with Anthem, the damage has been done. There's been a lot of reconfiguration of teams within the studio, and so they need to make sure they can prove it to the fans, and I think even their publisher, that they are here to stay. And this game needs to do well. EA has sort of had this renewed belief in single player games, which has been amazing to see. It certainly makes me very happy. But with that, EA is still EA. We've seen very familiar practices from them. And so if I'm BioWare, I want to make sure that as I watch a lot of these studios get closed down, we have not maybe contributed as much to EA as we would like, and we need to justify our existence. And we need to, for lack of better terms, justify our existence a smidge here. That's personally how I'm looking at it. I think it's a combination of small business mindset. I wouldn't say desperation, because I don't know if they're truly in a desperate position here, but more along the lines of, pedal to the metal, walking swiftly, kind of breaking into a jog over time. I think that's where BioWare is at as a company. And of course, I love that they haven't put a date on this thing yet. They're still getting the right talent. I also wonder, with getting consulting involved, how much longer is it? And I think the mantra in the studio right now is as long as it needs to be. And I'm cool with that. That's certainly been the energy I've had for many games like Starfield and this and so on. So I'm curious to know what you're thinking about this latest BioWare news. Are you encouraged by the return of Mark Darrah? Do you have any concerns about Mass Effect 5? What are you feeling with all of this? Certainly it's a lot, so fire away. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the heck out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all.